Hey guys, welcome back to my video. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. The cat has decided he's going to join us this morning. Here we are, Tuesday, October the 4th. Time for an October garden update. I know I'm a few days behind, but life happens. So, stay with me. And now that I'm on the ground, if my little one was here, she'd say, "Mommy, how are you gonna get up off the ground?" Well, she told me yesterday. So yesterday, we put together our cute little display here. You know, it is fall. We're going to totally disregard the fact that I have no siding on my house, because it's fall, y'all, and we have a cute garden display. So I bought all of these mums for this display. I went and bought the pumpkin containers. Some of them came from Walgreens. A lot more expensive than the other ones that came from Walmart by like double. So I did poke holes in the bottom of them. They have soil in them, and so I planted the mums in them just for this display. This is part of my garden tour because, hello, it's fall, y'all. Okay, now I get to get up. So I was not able to grow any of these pumpkins in my garden. When I did try to start pumpkins this spring, the bugs said screw you and ate them. So I have bought all of these pumpkins. In fact, the big pumpkin here, and here all came from the corn maze that we went to. The little pumpkins came from our local in-town garden or pumpkin source. They sell fireworks in the summer, and they sell pumpkins in the fall, and they sell fireworks in like right around New Year's, and then they sell like flower displays for Memorial Day. So it's kind of an all-around place. It's really cool. All of these mums came from Lowe's. I believe I got all of the mums here from Lowe's. The pink pumpkins came from Walmart, and the orange pumpkins came from Walgreens. I bought the orange ones when I couldn't find anything at Walmart in the form of pumpkins. And actually, the pink pumpkins were like $1.50, I think. $1.50 or $1.99. Anyway, the orange pumpkins were $4.99. So, I really wanted this display. Our scarecrow was actually left over from previous years, and then so was the corn, and then our unicorn here came from Lowe's. And yes, I know I have no siding on my house. I'm not going to focus on that because I have this really cool display. Now, I've been trying to research how to grow my own mums because I think it would be a lot of fun. But until I figure this out or find mum seeds, don't worry, I'm trying, but I haven't gotten there yet. So these 3 mums also came from our pumpkin place in town. They were $10 a piece, or 3 for $27, which is so much better. Like, they are in such better condition than the ones at the corn maze that we went to. The corn maze, they might have been a little bit bigger, but they looked half dead, and they were $15. And I didn't want to pay $15 for a half dead mum. So I am so happy with these. They look beautiful. I'm actually going to plant them in the front of the house, along probably later in the fall with all of those over in the pumpkins. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the front of the house. Now, if you've been following along with the channel, you know that I have been working on a patio. This is why I have no siding on my house. But anyway, we have been working on our patio. So most of the flowers over here actually came from my flower display over that was by the back door where I didn't have the patio at the time. But I had to move them out of the way because we were ready to pour concrete, and I didn't want to actually, pour them into the concrete. This is my flowers that I planted back, I don't know, I think it was May or maybe the first part of June. They were supposed to be red, white, and blue, but I couldn't find blue flowers, so I did the purple. The flowers over here, they were marigolds. When I had to move everything away from the house so that we could pour the concrete, I quit watering them and obviously they died. These were our tulips that came back. I bought them a year ago. Oh no, they're not tulips. They're Asiatic lilies. I bought them a year ago and put them in that, and they came back this spring. I've been kind of keeping the soil moist so that it will hopefully go ahead and come back next year. This is the flower pot that my oldest daughter put together. The purple flowers are Gomphrena. I assume I'm saying that right, but I could be totally off. There was also a Shasta daisy in there, I believe. It didn't last long, but I can still see the stems, and we water this to try and keep that going because the daisies are supposed to be a perennial, so hopefully they will come back next year. Then I have a mum in the back, and actually, or not a mum, I'm sorry, I have a marigold in the back, the orange, and the reason that it is there is simply because when we were getting ready to go on vacation, they were cleaning out the bed of my truck and they threw my receiver hitch onto the pot that the marigold was in and busted the pot. So I needed to go somewhere with it, so I just threw it in this planter here. And it was actually on its deathbed and is doing much, much, much better. So that's exciting, and it adds quite a nice little pop of color to all the purple. So this was the area where I had all of my herbs, as well as pretty much all those flowers we just looked at. As you can see, I now have concrete. I have a patio. I need to update that video because a lot has happened in the last few weeks that, if nothing else, I really want documented. But I hope that you guys will follow along with that too, because it is kind of part of the garden. So this is the side of my house where basically all I had planted this year are the hibiscus that I stole last year from my mom's hibiscus plant. Last year, of course, I had this completely full of tomatoes, but this year all I have are these hibiscus and a bunch of weeds. We had to re-roof this side of my house. There's a video coming out about that too, because this has been an interesting last probably month and a half at my house. But anyway, we had to re-roof this portion of my house, and so in re-roofing this portion of my house, they dropped all the old shingles down on my plants. So these guys, I'm surprised they survived because they had a buttload of shingles drop down on them. If you can notice from this view right here, no weeds. No freaking way, right? There are all the weeds that were in the front of my house. I have come through on the east side of my house and I mowed over them with the lawnmower and kind of chopped them all up, and then I threw a bunch more weeds on that pile. This took me about a week because while we have cool mornings, we've been as low as the upper 40s. We have still had some pretty warm days, and being here in the front of the house where there's a lot of water because of my drip irrigation, it makes this very humid, especially once the sun gets up and going. But this has been weeded. Oh my gosh, mind blown. Back to this. This is the flower pot that my littlest one did. We're actually doing really well until probably 3 days ago. I don't know. My drip irrigation has been kind of on the fritz, so maybe that's part of why they're not doing as well. We've also had some temperatures, dip down into the 40s, so that could be a good reason also as to why the flowers don't look the best. But up until, like I said, about 3 or 4 days ago, we've actually had really pretty flowers in this particular flower pot. Look at those roses. Are they not beautiful? I love roses. This is my Arctic Fire dogwood bush. There's actually 2 of them, and they are a perennial. Last year, the bugs came in, and by this time of year, I had just wiped all the leaves off, and it was so pretty because of the red stems. However, this year I still have quite a bit of green. I'm quite surprised. My pot that is kind of surrounded by, it had cone flowers in it. They're just there. And then it also has lavender, and the lavender is just there also. Now that is ornamental kale, and it was doing really well. Like this whole planter box on this side was doing amazing. And then something happened and my water for my drip irrigation fell out. And so it's probably late enough in the season that I'm not too worried about it anyway, but I don't think it's gonna last much longer. I do have the water fed back up through it, so when the water goes off it should water it, but it may be a lost cause at this point. The one on the other box it's been a goner for a long time, so I don't have any hope for that box. I really want to laugh at this particular planter because it is still watering. As you can see, the water is going off right now, but all it has planted in it right now are fake flowers that light up based off of solar. I think I will go ahead and possibly plant some mums in this particular bed or container. I'm not sure. I haven't decided how I feel or exactly where I want to go with the mums. Now we are into the gomphrena that I grew from seed. The stuff that my oldest daughter used, we actually bought. I grew this particular from seed. It has just gone crazy. I think the water is doing really well for it. It is in a huge planter. Then I have some planters beside it. I have a little one right here. Does not have anything, I think, but weeds. I have not weeded the planters themselves, and how they got weeds in them is kind of beyond me. There's a planter behind it that has nothing in it. I don't even think it has weeds. It does have a water spigot, but I shut it off because there's nothing growing in it. And then there's one hidden underneath the gomphrena that again has nothing in it because I think the gomphrena just kind of shaded it out. However, I do have these. They're not in good shape at all, but these are zinnias, and the zinnias may be in that box and they may have grown up and under the gomphrena, and that may be where they're coming from, I think. And then I have this truck planter that I got at Sam's this year, and it also has gomphrena. It had orange, QIS orange, that I grew from seed, and for some reason all of this is kind of laid over. I really think because especially I started it for the cut garden that I never really got established, I think it probably just needed something to kind of hold it up so that it would stand up and look a little bit better. But it's still done amazing, even in this very, very, very shallow truck bed. I mean, this is a pretty shallow bed. Now let's talk about this mum for a minute. This mum is ginormous. This mum is 2 years old. I bought it down when we went to the corn maze in 2020. I think I bought 2 or 3 of them, and I think I got them for like $10 a piece. And at that time they were a lot bigger even than the ones that are on my back patio. However, I planted it right here, not even knowing if it would come back. And this thing has done amazing for the last 2 years. I'm so happy with it. I really think what I should have done and what I have seen them do is they get almost, it's not chicken wire, it's almost like the wire that I use for my crawling things in the garden on my A-frames, and kind of put around it so that it would help hold it up, because it does tend to want to lay down like this. I have cut it back every year all the way to the ground, and every year it comes back just like this so far. So really what I'm thinking about doing is I have all those mums that are in the pumpkins, as well as the 3 that are on the patio that I haven't planted anywhere yet. I may just kind of plant them all right in this area, right here with this one, and just see if any of them will come back next year. And maybe if I cluster them together like I'm planning on trying to do, that may also help hold this dude up a little bit. So I have 2 planters right here. My horse planter has absolutely nothing in it, and then I believe the planter that's behind the mum there, I think it just has weeds. I don't think it's any kind of a flower at all. I'm not even sure if it has drip irrigation in it, but whatever is in that is still green. So now we have this area. This area is interesting because I have a bench that sits right there, and the bench was bought at an auction, and I've never really quite known what to do with the bench, but I really like the bench. Then I have this pickle vase contraption. I don't know. Used to, they would make pickles in it. That's why I'm calling it a pickle contraption. Crock. A pickle crock. There we go. I don't know where the water is coming from, but it is completely full of water. I need to dump that out. Obviously, as you can see, there is algae growing in it. My pumpkins, so I believe these, all my pumpkins came from the corn maze that we went to. I believe the biggest pumpkin there is for my oldest to carve. The one that's up on my bench is for the youngest. The other one here is for my husband to carve, and then mine is actually sitting on the back porch. Why they're separate, who knows? Maybe they don't like each other. This was cockscomb, and I believe it needed also to be trellised up. It is in a 3-gallon smart pot, so it may have even done better if it would have been in a bigger pot of some sort. That's just where it happened to fall when I was planting things out. And it's got a bunch of weeds in it also, so I'm wondering if all the weeds that grew up in this area didn't just drop seeds and whatever. And then this guy here actually gets watered by the plant that is hanging up. It's in such bad shape, I don't even want to show a picture of it. The one that is hanging up, my oldest got me for Mother's Day, because that's kind of what she does for Mother's Day, she buys me a hanging plant. Why it is doing so bad, I still don't have a clue, because it has been watered and fertilized and everything else, and it just looks terrible. If you go back and look, I think it was May or June, it was beautiful, and now it's almost like a skeleton, but there's still a few flowers on it. This is just a marigold that was planted. This is the Miss Moo planter, and it is my little one's planter. My mom wound up buying it. She wasn't doing anything with it. My little one talked her out of it, brought it up here, found that pink bucket, and that's Miss Moo. So I have this little mum here and this little mum here. Those mums actually came from Menards when we were on a trip to either buy shingles or siding. I'm not sure which. And while right now they are planted in those containers, and those containers actually do have drip irrigation to them. They don't look the best though, maybe because I bought them the beginning of September and here we are the beginning of October. But I am going to eventually pull them out of those containers and go ahead and actually plant them in the ground and see if they will come back along with everything that's back behind the house. Minus the window clings, because we don't want to talk about the window clings. I do want to show you the wreath. This was made for me by a friend of mine, Jody, and she does amazing wreaths. I can put a link to her. Hey, my Ring doorbell says hi. I can put a link to where you can look at her wreaths if you are interested down below in the comments. Or I mean in the box. Alright, this planter here also has nothing in it except a few weeds. This side got weeded, but the weed, for some reason, I guess the wind has blown some back, so I need to come back through and get them all out of here yet again. But at least they've been pulled, so they're dying. And then that planter has nothing in it, but the water is still running. I may go ahead and put a mum in there just to kind of make it pretty, or I may just leave it. It's about the time of year to start shutting off my drip irrigation, simply because we've been in the 40s. 32 is freezing, so I've still got about 15 to 20 degrees before I have to really worry about it. But my two window boxes that are above here, we're not even going to look at them because they've been dead for a while. My nasty siding on this side of the house that will be replaced come next spring. And then we have this butterfly bush, which actually, if you look close enough, there are some butterflies on it. Let's see if we can get in there and see them. actually have butterflies on the butterfly bush. And then we have the big rose bush that is actually a climbing rose bush that I probably need to put a trellis on, but I have yet to do that. Finally, we make our way down to the actual garden. So this is that raised flower bed that had parsley and homemade homegrown rosemary that didn't do anything. It had cilantro and fennel. It had a bought rosemary bush that I have actually propagated and repotted into a pot that I plan on moving into my shed when it gets a little bit cooler and letting it overwinter in the shed. Then it had these straw flowers, and it had some, I believe they were cayenne peppers. My oldest and I came through and pulled 2 peppers of every variety that we had except the habaneros because we forgot about the habaneros. And they have been put in pots to overwinter because a pepper plant is a perennial. And so we're trying our hand at trying to overwinter all of our peppers. So pretty much all that is left in this is the parsley. I don't even know what those are, to be honest with you. I don't even know. And then the straw flowers, and everything else has been removed from this box. Now this box here, we have talked about before, has nothing in it. I have dumped a few of my flower pots in here so that I had somewhere to go with the soil that was in the flower pots, but otherwise I still need to add probably 4 or 5 inches of soil into this. But this bed has been cleaned out. In fact, the drip irrigation for it kind of runs outside. Probably shouldn't have done that, but I keep forgetting to put it back in. We have cockscomb over there along with some marigolds. I have a marigold pot over here that was right beside this raised bed, and they all died, so we just won't even look at them. But those guys are doing fairly well. The cockscomb looks really bad, and I think it's just because it has been going all summer long and it says, I'm tired, I'm ready for bed. Now here is where we planted the 5 tomato plants that have all fallen down. I never got them trellised back up, as well as I have basil, and then I had 2, I believe they were the California Wonder Peppers. Actually, there may have been 4, but we pulled all the peppers that were between the basil and the tomatoes, and so we have put them into overwinter. But I pulled some of the basil has just been thrown out to kind of feed the yard, and the rest of the basil is still here. But if we move in here and look at these tomato plants, I have a bunch of cherry tomatoes. There are a bunch of blueberry tomatoes. There's some Roma tomatoes. I've got some tomatoes that are over there. Once the temperatures finally drop down out of that 100 every day and that upper 90s when it wasn't 100 every day, my tomatoes came on like crazy. There were a bunch of flowers here about 15 days ago that were showing like I would get a bunch more produce off of these. But I think because we are starting to lower in temperature in the nighttime, they're getting below that threshold that they really like, and so they're kind of tapering off. But I have a bunch of tomatoes in here that I can still come and pick for cherry tomatoes and at least blueberry tomatoes. This was the flowers. They've been gone for a while. They were Sunball Crispidia flowers and shell pink asters. The shell pink asters never actually did anything, but the Sunball Crispidia did. They've just decided they're done, and that's okay. And of course, we've discussed me and the fact that I left the onions in this bed to go ahead and, I don't know. So they're kind of just hanging out doing their own thing, but I'm not too worried about them. This bed here is the same way about the onions. I've emptied 2 flower pots. There is a smart pot down below this one. Both of those have been emptied. One of them had arugula. One of them had mustard greens. No, mustard greens were somewhere else. They had some kind of a green, and the other one had another type of green. This particular one has not been emptied, the soil in it, but of all the dead plants that's all been pulled. My big marigold bed is kind of a hit and miss. Some of them are doing amazing. Some of them said, I'm ready to go to bed. So it's really just hit and miss. But it's a good time to come out and collect seeds if I wanted to replant any of these marigolds. It still looks really bad because there's still a bunch of weeds. But if you can tell, I have actually been out here weeding this garden like crazy. There were a lot of weeds. Okay, I don't remember what those are, and I don't see a tag for them. So those are violet cosmos, and they look really pretty still. And then we have the Lisianthus. The Lisianthus never just were astounding for as much time and effort as they took to get them established, but they are very pretty. Then we have our habaneros. Like I said, we forgot to grab 2 habanero plants to put into winter storage because honestly, we forgot they were here. They were covered in weeds, and I didn't even remember that I had the habaneros until I came through and weeded. I mean, it was kind of in the back of my mind. I would think, oh yeah, I have habaneros, and then I wouldn't do anything because I would forget that I had the habaneros. This is the strawberry bed, and I've been through and weeded. It still has a bunch of weeds in it, but it looks way better than it did. At the end of that, we had some delicata squash in that smart pot, the black smart pot that died a long time ago, and so that smart pot really has just been sitting there doing nothing. And we had Lisianthus in the purple smart pot, and they're just there. Now this bed, we've talked about this bed. This bed to the light was potatoes that were dug up. We actually dug them up. As you can tell, we missed a few, obviously. And so they're just going to town. These potatoes are going crazy. And I don't know if we will actually get another harvest, or if maybe I will just leave them there all winter. I haven't decided what to do. I'm just kind of taking it one day at a time with these. And as you can tell, I have a drip line that got pulled out. I don't even know where it goes to. I need to pick it up and figure out where it came from. I think it actually belongs in the bed next to us, but I just don't know. It just is laying there. I have an onion at the very end of this bed, along with some nasturtiums. The nasturtiums down there never flowered. They only had the green. So you can eat a nasturtium, both the green leaves and the flowers. I've never tried a nasturtium. I don't know. I think it's the thought of eating a flower that's just weird to me. But you're supposedly supposed to be able to eat a nasturtium because every part of the nasturtium plant is edible. I just never have. This bed here is also potatoes. Now, we didn't get these potatoes dug up nearly as efficiently or as fast or anything as we did the half a bed. This was an entire bed of potatoes. One reason to not go ahead and leave the potatoes in the ground is because they say you're supposed to rotate your crops and not keep them in the same spot every year. Especially a nightshade plant's not supposed to be where a nightshade plant was. I'm pretty sure that these were where a nightshade plant was last year, so my garden is small enough that there's not a lot of rotation that can happen anyway. Yes, I need to watch and make sure that I don't get some of the diseases that come about that, but at the same time, I may just leave these potatoes and then come in next spring and kind of plant where there's some sparsity and see what happens, or maybe I won't. I have not decided yet. But we're to the point that all of these that are putting on leaves and stuff, you don't want to pull them and eat them, I don't think. So I don't know if I will actually get a second potato harvest or what the deal is. I may come in and try and harvest them just to see what happens. I don't know. This is what's cool, is we can learn. And if you happen to know, tell me what I should or shouldn't do. And if you don't know, well, hey, I'll be the guinea pig and we can learn together. Now here is where I say, cue the music. Because the gourd is gone. The stupid gourd is gone. I want to sing and dance and throw a party and everything else because the stupid gourd is gone. My mother-in-law and I came in and we ripped this sucker out. I was so mad at it and so tired of it, and with her help, it is G-O-N-E gone. Now, there is this interesting hole right here, and I don't know exactly where the hole leads to. It almost looks like it runs underneath the landscaping timbers on this way, because there's some ruffled ground over here. But to tell you that I know where that hole leads to or what made that hole, I don't have a clue. I do need to come in and top off all of these beds and add more soil to every one of them. So I'll just go ahead and fill that hole in and see what happens. But the gourd is gone. That's all that matters. End of story. Mic drop. Gourd drop. Actually, I have to tell you, my sister-in-law was over here over the weekend because she and her husband were helping tear shingles off of the roof, and she took some of the gourds home, and I was like, more power to you, as long as I never have to see them again. So moving on to this bed. This bed was my purple tomatillos. Oh, we didn't finish that bed. Let's talk about the rest of this bed. I got so carried away talking about that stupid gourd that I'm so glad is gone that I forgot about the rest of the bed. So we had green tomatillos over here that the gourd killed. Thank you, gourd. And then on that direction, we had what I believe I planted cucumbers, and I actually had cucumbers coming on, and then the gourd said, no you don't, and killed it. Prior to that, I think I had broccoli planted there that I ripped out because it just got too hot. Now I do have my tree. Remember, I have my tree that shades this whole side of the garden in the afternoon in the summer, and even more so in the winter, but in the summer. So the cool thing is that actually I think I get more sun on this half of the garden during the winter. I think that's right. Anyway, that was an ooh ball moment. Back to this, I think I had broccoli planted there, and we went ahead and we pulled the broccoli out because it got too hot and the broccoli bolted, so there was no reason to leave the plants in soaking out the nutrients. And that's when I came in with the store-bought cucumbers and tried to just I only had intentions of doing like 1 or 2 and wound up with like 6. That was a whole nother story, and it was a silly mistake on my part, but we won't go there anymore. Now, back to this bed here. So on this side of the bed, we had the purple tomatillos, and they say that the purple tomatillos are in fact different than the green tomatillos, both in flavor and kind of in usage. So if you make purple tomatillo sauce, it's obviously not going to be green tomatillo sauce. I still don't know what a tomatillo tastes like. I think I got like 2 tomatillos last year that I just threw in with a bunch of tomatoes because I needed to do something with it, and I didn't have enough tomatillos to do anything. And this year I was so hopeful to get purple and green tomatillos. You have to have at least 2 tomatillo plants to be able to pollinate the tomatillos so that you get tomatillos. I wonder how many times I've said tomatillos in the last like 2 minutes. Anyway, I had purple coming on so nice, and the gourd that I hate said, nope, you're not getting any. So I didn't even get any tomatillos this year. So I have hope for next year. I think I did run out of green tomatillo seeds, so I went ahead and I bought some new ones. Yes, I've already been buying seeds. In fact, I have a funny story. So I bought some seeds from Gurney's about a month or a month and a half ago now, and I still have yet to receive them because they still have yet to ship them. And so I got a email yesterday or the day before that was a survey that said, it was only 3 questions, and I really wish it would have been more, but it said basically, we want to know how your purchase at Gurney's. One was, yes, I've received my seeds. One was, no, I haven't received my seeds. And one was, I don't want to participate. And I clicked on, I haven't received my seeds, because they're not even supposed to ship until beginning October 1 through October, I believe it was 10 for most of them, and some of them are now back ordered and won't even ship until potentially the end of the month. The good thing is I don't need them right now because they are for next year's garden. But the bad thing is they took my money and I still have nothing to prove for it. Anyway, nice little story, right? Those are my eggplants, and they're still putting on eggplants. I was quite shocked that I got eggplants off of them, simply because of everything I read stating that, you know, eggplant was so finicky and you were better off to buy it at the farmer's market and yada yada yada. And I've actually had fairly decent luck with getting eggplants. I think because we are starting to cool down, my plants are going to stop producing and it's going to be the end of it. I'm not sure if I will replant eggplant next year or not, but it is nice to know that even through everything they went through, because they went through cold spells that they don't like, they like heat. They went through bug problems that they don't like. Everything has hit them, and yet I have still produced eggplants. So that makes me feel good, I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna claim it as a win. Okay, this bed was all peppers, except for the very end, which were the mystery seeds, which turned out to be another variety of eggplant that actually produced as well. It was an accident that these were all peppers, and I didn't think that I was supposed to plant all peppers together because I think peppers can actually cross-pollinate. However, I have seen some other garden updates on some of the places that I follow, and a lot of people tend to plant their pepper plants together, so it didn't make me feel nearly as bad. But we had poblano peppers here that I really did not get any peppers off of. I think I got like one, maybe two. My husband really wanted those, and I am now out of poblano seeds, so I'm gonna have to buy some more before next year. But I've never had luck with the seeds that I bought last year, so I may try either a different variety or something. Next to that, I had my shishito peppers, which I wish I would have paid a lot more attention, because my shishito peppers looked amazing in, I believe it was July, and then like 2 or 3 days after, they just looked fan-freaking-tastic. The bugs came in and basically killed them. And when that happened, I went ahead and I pulled all the peppers that were good off of it, and I went ahead, pulled the plants, and tossed them. Well, two things that I wish that I would have known about those shishito peppers. First off, peppers seem to be extremely tolerant plants. Like my poblano peppers actually got mowed off at least once, if not twice, and came back and still produced, because I didn't even get those 1 or 2 peppers that I got off of them until they had already been mowed down and came back. So that was interesting to me. So if I would have left my shishito peppers, there's a potential that I could have had more shishito peppers all summer long if I'd have just given them a chance to go ahead and come back, you know, fight the bug problem and come back. Second off, when I decided to save all of my, 2 of all the varieties of peppers, minus the habaneros, I could have saved 2 shishito plants for next year. I'm really happy with the shishito plants that I planted this year, and I plan on planting some again next year. I want to plant as many shishito plants next year as what I did this year, as well as last year I planted 17 jalapeno plants. I want to plant that many this year, or this next year, 2023, because I had 4 jalapeno plants, and while I got like 3 or 4 or 5, 6 peppers, the bugs again mowed them off, and they came back and they still produced, but it wasn't nearly enough. Not for what we like to do with them here. We like to make candied jalapenos with them. And then, of course, I told you I have my eggplant. Oh, I had bell peppers, kind of where all those weeds are that I have not pulled yet. Those bell peppers are from seeds that I bought last year. Last year I got no bell peppers. This year I got no bell peppers. So I may try to start seeds again from those next year, simply because I have the seeds, but I'm not going to hold my breath that I will get any bell peppers from those seeds either, because something about them, they didn't give me anything. And then I had the eggplants that were the mystery seeds from in my gardener, and I have gotten eggplant off of that. So we're gonna start with this bed again because the battery exhausted on my camera and I don't actually know when it did, but I kind of remember seeing me point at things. So we're just gonna start in this bed and go. Now we are on to this mess, and this mess happens to be the tomatoes. And I have a lot of blueberry tomatoes right there. I have a lot of cherry tomatoes, and that pretty much seems to be the tomatoes that I have gotten out of this 12 sets of tomato plants. Now, one thing that I learned this year, and everybody says you need to plant basil with your tomatoes. Well, I can tell you I had a lot less bugs with my 5 tomato plants over at the north side of the garden where all that basil was planted than what I had here on the south side of the garden where it was just tomato plants. So next year I am going to plant a bunch of basil, and I am going to put the basil with the tomato plants and try and save some headache with bugs. Also, I had some tomato plants here that never put on a single tomato. But we had a very weird, wicked hot summer, so that may be part of the problem. I'm going to write it off as a learning curve. I'm going to realize that I love having my trellising system for the tomatoes, and we're going to move on next year and have a better tomato crop. Wish me luck. There's my pep talk. Now, this bed here, all of this is just weeds. I do have some green beans over here, and so far I have only had one helping, like one serving for one person of green beans, but I do see some green beans in there, so maybe I should come out and pick those. I might wind up with more. Otherwise, this was all planted to green beans from the plants up there that are dead this way, and I just did not get what I wanted. Now, the seeds for my green beans are actually from 2020 seeds, so that made them basically 3 years old because they were 2020 and then 2021 and now 2022. That may have had something to do with it. I don't know. But anyway, I have gotten one serving and my mom was the lucky winner. Now, I had squash plants down there and the squash bugs found them and the squash bugs killed them, and I hate squash bugs. Oh, wait. No, I don't think anybody likes squash bugs. But anyway, the squash bugs came in and killed these plants. I had a bunch of squash just growing out my ears. And like that squash right there, the bugs are eating on it, so it's not even a viable one to save. That was jalapeno and jalapeno. There is one jalapeno on one plant. Otherwise, I pulled all the jalapenos to put into winter storage. And I have a whole video on what my oldest and I did, and we can talk about that later. My zinnias are starting to finally say, okay, we're tired. We've had enough. There's still a few. Most of them have died off. I won't blame them. It is hot. It is the end. It is fall now. They're tired. It's okay. This is just cinnamon basil, which I let go to, I let it bolt a long time ago. I kept it for the aesthetic look and because it smells good. So I may go ahead and plant some of that basil in with my tomatoes, even though I can't find where it says you can actually eat it. So if somebody knows, please help a girl out, because I'm curious. This is just all of the leftovers of all the different flowers that were planted. It's October. I don't even remember what was there. Oh, those were flowers. Those were asters, China something asters. This was peppers that I pulled. These are peppers, and I actually have a bunch I need to get out here and get picked. These are the Thai hot chili peppers. I did go ahead and pull some of the plants so that we could put them in winter storage. Otherwise, these guys are just still going at it. Of course, these are the bunching onions that have gone ahead and put on some heads, but I had them so close together that the heads aren't going to amount to anything. We have the flowers. These are the Cosmos, and they're just starting to say it's October and we're done. My pineapple down here, he didn't do anything. We talked about that. That is my asparagus, and I think next year or the following year, we'll finally be able to start harvesting some asparagus, so that's fun. Asparagus is one of those long haul type vegetables. You plant it for 2 to 5 years out, not for this year. This is the Swiss chard. One of it's rainbow and the other one, I don't remember exactly the variety. I've kind of just let it go. Maybe I'm feeding bugs and that's part of my problem. I don't know. But I just kind of let it go. And of course, then we have some weird onions that were left over in here doing their thing. These are Anaheim peppers, and I did save some of the pepper plants, but as you can see, I've got some good Anaheim peppers on there too. Let's take a real quick sneak peek and say, oh look, we have eggplants. Aren't they cute? And then we'll sneak over here, and these are more round than they are long and oval. But we have real pretty eggplants. There's some green ones over there. This metropolis of a mess. This was where we planted all that hodgepodge of, oops, I accidentally dropped the tray and don't know what all it is. I did wind up finding, I believe it was a banana pepper. Some kind of a pepper in here, but I only got one of those, so only one is in storage, obviously. And then this was watermelon, which there's a watermelon right here. But he hasn't gotten any bigger, and I think he's kind of been eaten by bugs. I don't know. We had cantaloupe, and all the cantaloupe just pretty much, like all of this has died off within the last very short while, and I don't know why, but it was starting to want to grow that way where the gourd was growing this way, and they both kind of upset me, and I just was ready to say screw you, honestly. So I need to come through and get rid of all the debris, figure out what the deal is with the watermelon and whatnot, and just start all over. These are the huckleberries, and it actually put on more huckleberries. A lot of them are still green, but there are some black ones. I don't know if they will actually go ahead and do something for this year because there's not that many there. So I don't know, but it is supposed to be a perennial. So I will just cut it back and see if it comes back next year. I'll be interested. And then we had purple beauty peppers right here. And I went ahead and I pulled them because there were only 2, I believe. And of course, then we have this old potato from last year. And a lot of my lights got knocked down, so I'm ready for winter to come and all this to kind of die back so I can find all my lights and get them all reset. That way next year, I'll know how many lights I need to buy so that I can get this all lit back up, because I just absolutely love it. Love, love, love it in the wintertime. I said wintertime. I mean at nighttime. Nighttime, when all the lights are on, because hello. Finally, this garden. This was that garden where my oldest and I tried very diligently to get all this mulch down and get nice pretty rows and get it all planted. And we had such good hopes of, not hopes, but plans for tomatoes and corn and green beans and, pumpkins and whatever else our heart desired. And it got hot. And the summer was hot. It got so hot that we're kind of hurting for cow hay. It's pretty bad. Anyway, it got hot. We got tired. We didn't make it. But now that it's going to cool off and everything, we're going to work on this a lot more and make a go out of it next year. Remember now, I have planted 43 tomatoes, and I plan on planting quite a bit of tomatoes next year, but I plan on trying to do better. I said that last year and probably even the year before, maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna do better. But oh my gosh, look at these blueberry tomatoes. Aren't they pretty? Wow. And there's some tomatoes there. I've got tomatoes that I need to get picked, and then I need to pull all these tomato plants out. I did a really, really good job of getting
the trellising up to support them. I didn't do as well on everything else. I mean, these plants were kind of goners from the beginning. There's a pretty tomato, but he's all bug ridden. It is what it is. It's a learning curve, and I will do better next year. Next year we'll find out. I have this video that says I will. We'll see. So now that the neighbor and the mailman and somebody driving down the road, as well as everybody on the highway, has seen me out here talking to what feels like myself, I guess I will say that this October garden tour is done. It is on the books. It is videoed. It will be up on YouTube very shortly. And I hope that you will give this a thumbs up. Like it, please. Oh, thumbs up and like is the same thing, isn't it? I think so. Maybe you could subscribe to my channel. Give me tips. I need help. I mean, everybody needs help. If you're not learning something, what are you doing? They say it's good to learn a new thing every day, and I'm game for it. Anyway, like, subscribe, leave me a comment, and we will talk to you another time, and I will give you some more updates on the whole shenanigans that is my house. Okay, talk to you later.